So people joining.
So we are now recording the session. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here tonight. It's a pleasure, and thank you, Christina, and thank you, Patrick, for being here. There are still people coming in from the waiting room and joining us. We are recording this session, and it's a pleasure to have Patrick here tonight from Track. And without further ado, I think I hand over to you, Patrick. Thank you for doing this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And yeah, welcome, guys. And I hope I can give you a few insights of my business and how to design digital products within the next more or less 55 or 60 minutes. I'm from Track, but I will introduce myself and Track a few minutes later. What we will do today is, yes, the session is called Designing Digital Products, but it's more about how designing digital products has changed the world. It's more or less a helicopter view on the business and the last 50 years, what kind of influences we have seen changing user behavior, business models, and so on. And what I prepared are more or less 4 chapters. That the first one is the starting point, the very, very starting point of how personal computing started in the 80s or 70s, and maybe set a movement or started a movement into digitalization. And then afterwards, in the second chapter, I will go a little bit more deeper into the marketing perspective, how that influenced the marketing and what happened there when digitalization started to play or come up to the playground. And afterward, we make a short shift in how, what has happened when digital products influence our life. What were the methods behind it to think about products, and what kind of new methods we needed to create it. And that is what design thinking is about. I think for all of you, it's a known term, but I could talk the whole evening about design thinking, but let's see, to keep it short. And the fourth chapter is about digital products. And here I will try to characterize a little bit what is the essence of a successful digital product. And that is maybe, quite interesting. Me, I'm Patrick. I'm Executive Director, Experience Design at Track. We are located in Hamburg. I'm in the business, you can see it maybe with by my gray hair. I'm in the business for about 20 or 20 plus years right now. And I started with developing digital campaigns, marketing things, and then went into platform design, service design, product and service development, and so on. And right now I am a team lead responsible for the Mini automotive brand. That is very cool because I've done it 10 years ago, the first time. And it's a pleasure to be back at Track and doing Mini again. And I'm responsible for experience design. I told you already that, and experience design is, in my point of view, a combination of UX design, UI design, it's visual design, and user experience design. And my focus is strategy, data, and of course XD. And because I cannot tell you, and I'm not allowed to show you something what I'm working on right now, I have to tell you a little bit of one of my older projects. It was an invention we did almost 7 years ago, I think. We built a platform that allows really e-commerce for vehicles, and that was a pilot project in United Kingdom. And that was maybe one of the first brands that enables the user to really buy a car online without ever being at a dealer, only to get the car, of course, and the key. but everything else was done digital or remotely, and that was a very cool experience. And that was maybe a kind of a game changer, because a lot of other automotive brands followed this example. And yeah, I'm doing quite similar things for Mini right now, but I'm not allowed to tell. So yeah, brands I've worked for, it's a lot of from the BMW group, BMW, the sister brand, Mini, BMW M, BMW Motorrad, and a lot of other brands, but always everything around designing platforms, products, services, and so on. And now a little bit about me, and then I will jump directly into the topic after presenting what is Track about. For me, it's always important to tell you what my ambition is and what my passion is. I see myself a little bit as an advocate for the user, and I try to link the client demands and the client requirements. They want to shape maybe services and products and create something that is helpful and useful and brings money. And I have to convince my team to do it. And so I'm jumping between different perspectives, and that is a kind of a nice catalyst role and communication role, and I like it very much. And but keep in mind, maybe some of you doing XD or UX or whatever, we can see ourselves as an advocate for the user, and that is maybe helpful. And how we work is, of course, now in new work and remote times, it's not so maybe physical collaboration, but we are doing creative stuff. It's not only sitting the whole day because we are working on digital things, that we sit in front of our MacBook the whole day. No, we are working in collaboration remotely or physical, and doing creative things by using creative methods. And that is very, very, very important, because yeah, it's everything is collaboration and a team thing, and we need so many expertises from the different directions, experienced design, data analysts, developers, and so on, to do what we do. Okay, and about Track, I will keep it ultra short, but maybe it's important to know where I come from and what I'm doing. Track is a big agency located in Hamburg, and we are, you have seen it, we are responsible for different client relations, and we are doing brand management, building brand designs, brand communication. We are caring about customer data and deriving CRM solutions. We implement marketing solutions and technology. I'm responsible for platform and digital touchpoints. That is a bunch of topics, all linked to digital things, but of course to classical or classic marketing, like advertising and so on. That is a very, very nice combination. And Track is also responsible for a lot of brands, big players and mid-sized players and so on. But I will jump to this slide, because Track is part of a network. It seems to be a little bit like it's focused somewhere on the American continent, but it's located worldwide, and the network is quite interesting. It's an Omnicom, big Omnicom agency or advertising network with DTB agencies, and somewhere in the middle, or not in the middle, is Track. So we have the network behind us, and that helps us a lot with client relations and finding clients, using synergies and so on. But that is enough about me and my company. Now have fun with the core of this presentation. And now we start with the origin of personal computing. And when everything started, it looks a little bit like this. And this is, for sure, that is my environment I started. And that is my first contact with the digital era and computing. That was an Apple IIe computer with 2 floppy disks and a monochrome display. And that is where I was taught programming BASIC and stuff like this, and Pascal. That were the two languages we are trained. And that is how everything started. That was in my school. And we were the first class ever at this school who were teach informatics. That was the thing, how it was called then. And in 81, maybe some of you know that the IBM personal computers started, and that was more a solution for business purposes or mid-sized companies. It was not for personal use. And in 83 there was the Apple thing, and now you know, and you can see why it was not a topic for everyone at home, because the environment, this computer was about 6,000 D-Mark, Deutsche Mark, and if you see as a specification, the RAM was 64K, and that is what every microcontroller has now in 1,000 times, and so that were, from our perspective now, very poor performance computers, but that was the beginning. And in 84, the environment looked a little bit like this, and that was personally my environment. I had a Commodore C64 that was also a basic home computer where you can link your TV as a monitor. And the totally progress was that you were able to link different computers by modems or acoustic coupler, it was in Germany, via your phone standard, and to have the first access to kind of web or whatever it was called then. And that was interesting, but the machines were very poor. I learned BASIC and programmed a little bit proprietary software for the Commodore C64. And if you see here, also the pricing, that was enormous, 6,000 Deutsche Mark, also the same as the Apple IIe, and yeah. So it was not the gadget for everyone. It was for the first target group, and maybe the early adopters or the first movers and stuff like this. Maybe you have heard of this terminology when you talk about target groups. And that is how everything started. It was poor, less performance, a small user group. Everything was tricky, but a movement started. And then, by the way, in 1978, a popular German magazine about computers started with the first issue. That was then, and this magazine is also available now. It has a very, very, very long history. And if you see how long is it on the market and where is the starting point, maybe on making this kind of stuff or niche popular with a magazine. If there are some buyers of a ship magazine for such a niche, that needs something to maybe the business and the target group. So there was a kind of the beginning interest in this niche. So, and now I will tell you a little bit about the innovator's dilemma. And that is maybe a little bit linked to what we have learned about the digitalization and the starting point of personal computing. And maybe a lot of you know Kodak. Kodak was one of the big global players when we talk about analog photography, because it was Kodak, Aqua, and Fuji, and they shared the market. They provide the photographers with these analog film things, and they invented the Polaroid camera that was able to make instantly, to produce hard copy photos. And that was a big business, and they optimized the Polaroid camera lots of times and the material, and they keep on track, and they optimize their sustainable business. And maybe you can suggest what follows. In 1975, there was a lead engineer at Kodak who pitched internally before the manager or in front of the management board an invention, and that was the first ever built digital camera. That was a small camera he built on his own, and this camera was able to transform a taken picture into digital pixels and save it onto a magnet tape. It was 100 by 100 pixel, this image, and the saving process needs about a few minutes. And that was a very, very poor standard, of course, from our point of view today. But that was the first ever idea of transforming analog photography to digital things. Yeah, and now, surprisingly, the management board said, what do we do with this shit? Get out of here. We don't need this because it's too lame. Solution is too poor. What is it about? We don't need it. We have our high-end analog thing. We will keep on track with this. And now, what happens? Some competitors came up with the same solution, brought up first things on the market, and Kodak a few years went bankrupt. So that was a big mistake from the management board because they set up something we call innovator's dilemma. And that means, maybe I can explain it a little bit here with this diagram. When you have you can see here the big black arrow, you can see that if you have an existing sustaining technology, you have progressions, you can optimize it every time and you can make it better and better and better. It's like developing cars, combustion cars. And of course you can optimize it and they are getting better, 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 better. But you can also see that sometimes it's necessary to make a disruptive change and to start something new. And then it could happen, you can see it in the red line, that the quality maybe of this invention is at the beginning is of course not so good when you compare the standards to the common or popular technology because it's new and so on. But here is a very, very interesting aspect. You have in each market, you have so-called low-end customer requirements that are customers that are not so keen on the high-end or mid-end requirements. They are okay and they are fine with low standards and they are open to set up on a new technology. And that is why disruptive technologies somehow find their customers in the niche and then get successful and successful because also the disruptive technology is optimized in cycles and then it becomes better and better and better and somehow the line crosses and then the disruptive technology is better than the old one. And that is what we call the innovator's dilemma when companies did not see that and miss the point to start it. And here is, maybe Clayton Christensen is the father of the term innovator's dilemma. He wrote an whole book about the stories with a lot of examples of big companies that failed when not seeing this tipping point. And a lot of examples I could list now, but maybe when we talked about combustion engines, you see that you have the conventional combustion cars and then you have electromobility. And remember the starting point. Oh, no infrastructure. Oh, they do not, the batteries are too small and everything was bad. But a few first movers from maybe the target group were fine with the idea of supporting this disruptive technology. I'm maybe one of them, and riding an electric vehicle, because for my need and for my personal requirement, it's okay to have such an infrastructure and a low battery capacity. And now the standard is improving so much, and maybe we face a tipping point where electromobility completely will replace the combustion industry. And what I hear from the automotive brands, because I'm working in that field, all the automotive brands start to switching the main capacity to e-mobility and get rid of combustion engines in the future. So, and what we can learn when we talked about technical improvements and technical innovations is something that we call a Moore's law. And Gordon Moore in 65 states that computer performance doubles every 18 months, or first he said every year the computer performance of ships also is doubling. And that, if you see it in a diagram, you can see that if you see the processors that were invented one after another, that the transistor capacity was increasing. And so that was maybe a proof for his thesis. And that means if you see and if you are aware that maybe when your technical innovation or what you are inventing is maybe at the moment not good enough to meet all the target group or the user's requirements or needs, that maybe in the future, knowing about Moore's law and how technology is developing, that the tipping point will sooner or later come. And then it's a pure math to see when it could be, and then you can calculate it. And that leads me to another point, that we maybe can divide the last, I don't know, what is it, 50 years in 4 cycles of personal computing, because you have learned now how everything started. We had the first personal computers invented around starting end of the 70s, starting of the 80s. They were maybe used by office and hobby purposes by around 20 million of peoples in Germany. And you see a light S-curve. It's starting slowly, then more and more people get into this new trend, and then sometimes the market is full. There is no need to buy more of these devices or technology things. And so we see that by end of the 90s or mid of the 90s, we had 20 million of personal computers in Germany. And then, maybe it was enough, because it was not so good that all those households should have one. And then we see another invention. Then another thing came up. That was the invention of the web and the Web 2.0 and e-commerce. And everything started maybe with Amazon and online shops. And then we had another movement. And you see here also an S-curve that is higher, but it's a little bit smaller. It's a little bit squeezed. And that means the speed of increasing and the speed of improvement is higher now. And by 2010, we had maybe 40 million people in Germany that are using e-commerce via online or by online sales and so on, and the web. And then something there, and now you see the plateau on the S-curve, and then you see, around 2010, the mobile business and the mobile revolution started. And then in a very short period of time, almost in 2020, we see that nearly 70 million people in Germany have a mobile device at home. And that is also the S-curve, and it's Moore's law, and so on, and disruptive technology and all of that. And now that is more or less it's a dotted line. The fourth cycle, we see that is more or less the Internet of Things, smart home and so on, connecting all the devices without any barriers. It's artificial intelligence, and we can see that it's starting, and we expect it maybe by an end by 2025, and then let's see what the fifth cycle could be. We should be we maybe can see what happens here and expect it like this, but that is only an assumption. Okay, and now I would like to show you, I like this clip very much, what happens in 2007 and what the groundbreaking innovation were made here. I think the most of you know this clip, and I will tell you later a little bit about it, why it is so important. I hope that you can hear the sound also.
Today, we're introducing 3 revolutionary products of this class. The first one is a widescreen iPod with touch controls. The second is a revolutionary mobile phone. And the third is a breakthrough internet communications device. So, 3 things: a widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communications device. An iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it? These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device. And we are calling it iPhone. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
And that is why I like this clip so much. There are so many dimensions when you analyze what is happening here. The first thing is that here a totally new product was invented that was very, very well designed for upcoming and maybe unexpected customer needs. And Apple kicked all the competitors in the ass and changed the whole industry. It changed the mobile industry. It changed the digital business. There was so many change started by this keynote in 2007, and that we cannot honor this enough. When what Apple and Steve Jobs were doing and starting at this time, because of course there were some competitor phone products at the same time, but iPhone had a marketing strategy that was so brilliant that the iPhone and the new standard was so rolled out all over the world that somehow a new standard was done and a new customer behavior and expectation and a kind of value creation for companies was set as a new standard. And that was very, very cool. That leads me to the next point, how marketing has changed. Have you ever heard of the GAFA, Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, or GAFAM? That is the same list with Microsoft at the end, or FAM, that is the same list with Netflix in the middle. That is how we often call the digital champions that were so important in the digital world, and they were so important in changing the behavior of the client, of the industries, of the companies, of the customer expectations, of the value creation, and so on. So that is maybe a reason why we call them digital champions. And I will tell you a little bit about it. And we start with GAFA, because that is, if you talk about GAFAM, that is nearly the same. And we can see that when Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon started, it was not the same time, but more or less in an era that was determined by them. And that is maybe when we see back to marketing, how marketing looked like for the last 50 years. You had the brand on the one hand, and the brand was telling the customers outside here why you exist. This is a brand promise. If you buy that product, then you could define what you do and what you are. And that was done by advertising. That was a very, very easy relationship. It was done by TVCs, by print advertising. That was very simple. You remember beer advertising, tobacco advertising, very, very simple and very linear. And then, if you invent big cars like SUVs, then it would be easy to make nice marketing plans and advertising campaigns. But now you have new players on the playground. You have digital channels that you have to be aware of. You have user-generated content. You have social networks that can jump into your communication aims, and that things could happen that you cannot foresee. And if you see that, that was very, very bad. And I don't want to translate it into English, but that is not a very, very nice a word in German, and that means that user-generated content can influence your with millions of dollars planned campaigns and so on. So that means that the digital champions and the digital channels and so on, and the possibilities can now influence the old-fashioned brand product advertising access. And that means that the GAFA and Co, that there are only examples. We have PayPal, Zalando, Uber, Booking.com. There are a lot of digital players that are jump into this direct linking between a brand and a product and conquer the customer relations. They jump into this direct customer relation because they have access to the user, because all of their digital services on products that they deliver, because that they have products that they are so dominant in the digital or in the user perception and in the digital user journey and in the world of the user when using digital devices or visiting digital touch points. That is crazy. And these numbers here are very, very old. But in the beginning, we had a balance between the 4 GAFA brands, and they were covering 51% of the digital touch points and the digital journeys in comparison to all the other brands out there. And it was totally difficult for a brand like BMW, Mini, Coca-Cola to get access to the user out there, because the digital champions were having 50% of the Aufmerksamkeit. I know, you know what I mean. And that was quite challenging for the more or less old companies. They had to face challenging times. And when you see what compared by market cap, you can see that in the 1995, you have 20 big companies and they were ordered by market cap. And I assume that the left biggest column is maybe Coca-Cola on the very left side. And then you can see Microsoft and Intel, they are playing somewhere in the midfield, and that's not bad. But then, what is it? 20 years later, you have Apple, Google, Amazon and Facebook under the top 4, together with Microsoft, it's GAFAM. And you have the global big digital champions on the first 5 places. And they are summarizing the very, very big part of the whole market cap of the top 20. And you see that Intel is on the rank 20 right now. That is a big change, and the market cap is also an indicator for how important the brand and their product is in the client perception, because when they sell a lot of, they are successful and they have a lot of market cap. And that is a quite interesting idea, and that is why this term GAFA was born. It comes from this kind of analysis when looking at the numbers and ordering them. Okay, and that leads us to the point that we face a new focus. We see that digital products with an exceptional user experience are on the plate right now. Now we have a new kind of product, a new era of products, a new generation of products that are not comparable to the old ones. And I will tell you a little bit about why. So all of you know Google. Google started with a search engine. And even today, we do not say I search in the internet. No, I Google the internet. So that was very important, because before we had only catalogs, the long pages with all the content sorted as a catalog. And that was an invention. And that changes user behavior and user expectations, and also monetization possibilities. And here is an example with Google Maps, also a product from Google. And they started with Google Maps, and then a transformation of the user expectation started. The users learned that, if I want to know something about routes or finding locations or location-based services, I have to use Google Maps. And that means also a transformation of the user behavior. Route planning, no, it's not TomTom, it's Google Maps. And it's also a transformation of value creation, because Google Maps could make so much money with the product search, maps, and so on. And that is also done by Apple. Apple is one of the products. Apple started with the iPod. That was also a radical change, because it was a transformation from analog music libraries to digital music libraries, the libraries in your pocket. And that changed also user expectations. What I expect from Apple and from my iPod is a change of user behavior. I have not to go to my Plattenspieler and to listen to my albums and to my vinyl things. I have it in my pocket. And also it's a big monetization potential for companies like Apple. Facebook did something similar. They invented the Facebook newsfeed very early, and that is a kind of transformation of user expectations, because the user learned, in the newsfeed I have personalized information from my network, from my friends, from me, from the channels I booked, from my hometown. Maybe it's very, very personal. Then the transformation of user behavior is, I put my iPhone out of my pocket, I start swiping, and that is maybe a big user behavior. And of course, because of the Facebook ads, it was a big transformation of value creation, because Facebook were able to monetize it like hell. For Amazon, it's the same. They started with online shop and book selling. I think it was in 1997. I bought my first book at Amazon in 2003, if I remember correctly. Yeah, and they invented Amazon Prime. It's also the transformation of user experience. We have a lot of low barriers to ordering online. You change that changes user behavior, because I know, okay, I can order it by Amazon Prime, and it's at my home the next day, and so on and so on. So that were a lot of things that the GAFA and the big champions were able to change. Always the 3 dimensions: user expectations, user behavior, and value creation. We will come back to this later. So that is going to be tight for the brands, I call it, because the GAFA also pushing their effort and their monetization things into horizontal diversification. They try to conquer other markets: health, retail, smart home, entertainment, mobility, mobile, all the GAFAs with their own solutions. And of course, only a few survived, but that started a movement also with a big competition between the GAFAs and fighting around of niches and horizontal diversification. And that is quite interesting. And the standard for a product within such a niche is so high because the competitors are so experienced also. And that is what we are as a user or customer. We could be glad about it. Okay, and now I want to tell you about, I have 40 minutes left, it's a little bit tight, so I have to speed up a little bit, about why design thinking matters here. And maybe you know that design thinking is about a kind of human-centered approach to innovation. And I like to tell the so-called milkshake story here. And in short, it is about Deli or a milkshake company that was selling them. I think it was in the 70s or in the 80s. They were selling milkshakes and bagels and so on, and cereals. And they try to improve their business, to optimize the business, and to enlarge their business. And they do market research and so on. But nothing really, they couldn't figure out to improve. It seems to be like they are on a plateau and nothing else could be done to improve or to enlarge the business. And then they asked a team of service designers to do their market research on their own, and they started with field research. They started to interview leaving customers in the queue and the staff, and tried to figure out what are the demands, what are the learnings, what is maybe the problems, what the people have when coming to this daily, and what do they expect, or what do they want the daily to solve in terms of a problem they have. And that was kind of interesting, because they found out all the people are getting hungry around 10 o'clock. Most of them were driving by car and had longer car distances to manage. Most of them were driving, and they wanted to have somehow a second breakfast, and they wanted to have something they could eat with one hand, because bagel is very tricky when driving. The Snickers is maybe making dirty your coat, and so they came up that a milkshake with cereals in it is perfect for the hunger. You can put it in the cup holder, and that is a perfect solution for this target group standing in front of this deli. And they made this proposal to the management board of this deli, and it was a total success, and they were able to increase their business. And that was maybe an example how design thinking should be done and what is the mindset behind. And if we see what Tim Brown was the CEO of IDEO. IDEO is a very, very popular American design firm and design company. And he said design thinking is a human-centered approach to innovation. And yeah, he maybe and his colleague and another guy, they invented more or less the term design thinking and maybe the method to come to perfect products. And here are some of the products from IDEO. That was the first iMac, the computer mouse, the first one. And everything they do is about, I always call it the toothbrush metaphor. I don't know if metaphor is perfect English, but it's the idea of, is the product I have to invent, is it something that people use once or twice a day, and does it really solve the problem? And then design thinking is an approach to solve problems and to develop new ideas. The aim is to find solutions that are convincing from the user's point of view, and that is it all about. Design thinking is an approach to come to the solution from a user perspective. And from our perspective now, it's totally clear, and it is totally, maybe it's a standard, but not 15 or 20 years ago. When I started in my business career 20 years ago, even the term design thinking was not born. And we started then intuitively with speaking to internet users about what to expect and so on. But it was a process that took very long. And then design thinking was born, and now it's a kind of a standard when working in product development. And sometimes you see it with 6 phases, you have wild diagrams, and always it's kind of understanding the problem, observe it, define, then ideate, prototype, and test. Sometimes you see it with 5 phases, then the vocabulary change a little bit, but it's always emphasize with the audience, with the user group, switch to the point of view of the user, define what is really the problem, sharpen the problem you have to use, then start ideation to find out what could be a possible solution, prototype it, not play around with it. What is feasible, test it, and then you can find out what could be worth to follow as the only solution. And now we have seen that maybe the double diamond is more or less the standard. Sometimes we call it triple diamond because there is another phases description. But double diamond is the process and the framework for doing design thinking. And it's always, the first diamond is about understand, and the second diamond is about create and deliver. And if you see it from a meta perspective, it's very easy. I always try to tell it by some gestures, the wild gestures, because you start to collect everything and information you can get, then you try to compromise it to a real problem, to one problem you want to solve. Then you start ideate, brainstorming, finding solutions, finding ideas, brainstorming, and then you try to reduce it to at least one remaining by prototyping and testing. And that is what the double diamond and design thinking is about. And I think that the companies like the GAFAs and the digital champions did exactly that. They thought about what are the users need. And when I can tell a little bit from my experience, we very often have companies or clients that start with, yeah, we invented a product because our engineering department has figured out that this could be a possible thing. Do you have an idea how to advertise or how to do the marketing for it? And that is maybe the wrong direction. And that is a mind shift that takes place, but that takes a lot of time. Not all companies are right now onto it. but the first movers are and others are not. And that is a change we are in this change, and we can see what happens right now. And that leaves me to the last chapter, and maybe it could be finished at 8. About digital products. And I had told you already that everything is about needs and problem solving, and is to change the perspective and to be the advocate of the user and to take the point of view of a user or customer. And that is here some very interesting side that very often we can see people don't want to buy a 1/4-inch drill, they want a 1/4-inch hole. That is, they maybe are not interested in how the product solves my problem, they want the problem solved. And that is maybe a different way of thinking. And very often when we see inventions from engineering departments, from big companies, they are thinking about the tool and not about the result. And that is maybe something we have to keep in mind when developing and designing digital products. And it's always about a job to be done. Every successful product solves a real problem. And I would repeat it 100 times because that is so essential. And I have to keep it in mind like a mantra all the day, because it's very often it's like a trap. When you're doing your daily business and you're working as a platform designer and doing things for clients, you have always step back and see what is the real problem I have to solve, and to see the tree instead of the forest. So, and now let's hop over to what defines a successful product. The definition for me is, maybe there are 100 of definitions. I did one of my own. It's a bundle of digital services with maybe an optional physical component, and often a new type of usefulness and user experience. And that is for me also very important, because a digital product is not necessarily an app or platform. It could be a physical product that is totally linked to a digital environment, like a smart home device or whatever. So, but it provides very often a totally new level of usefulness and user experience. And that was what digital product is about. And now how you can characterize it, maybe I have brought 3 characteristics and 8 criteria, how to detect or how to judge maybe if a product or digital product is successful. And the first 3 are, you remember it. I told you already, it's a transformation of user expectations, a transformation of user behavior, and the transformation of value creation. If you see that the product you are thinking about could change the user expectation, that the users start to think of an Uber app. Aha, okay, I can have an alternative to a taxi if I use Uber. That means it's a transformation of user expectation. And then it's followed by transformation of user behavior, because they do not ring a taxi, they put their Uber app and book an Uber shuttle and so on. And of course, that is a lot of value creation behind it. And that is the triptych. I always call it triptych. I like triptychs very much. And that is what is very important: user expectation, user behavior, and value creation. And now coming to the 8 criteria, that is, maybe we can enlarge this list to 10 or 12, but I brought 8. That is, the first thing is maybe the casualness. You need a low barrier to trying out and to use it. If you see a Bolt e-scooter on the street, you can do your digital onboarding by mobile phone within 4 minutes. There is no need to jump at home wait 3 days for a paper with a code to start it. It's very, very casual right now. And then that means it's the fact of the value should be 10 times more than the maybe product, the similar product or the product before, or the product you want to push from the market. That means when you reinvent flight bookings, it's not a good idea to make it a little bit better. Then you need a radical change in doing it with hotel, with payment options, with reminder, with totally automated onboarding procedures and so on. That means 10 times more value. Built-in marketing, we can see very, very often in app environments that if you use the Uber or the Uber app, then you can see that you count on the social responsibility of the other users, and they judge the drivers and the car. And there is so many marketing aspects built in that is for sure also a guarantee for having a successful product. Then you have very often you have the lock-in. That is not logging in, that is a lock-in. You are locked into an environment, into a situation. And if you start using this app, you are in. And that it's maybe good if you decide for now it's not my taxi, it's what is it? Free now, right now, or share now, I don't know. You are logged in, and if you use a taxi or want to order a taxi, use this app and no one else or no app else. The next thing is the user experience. Of course, the standard for this successful digital products is so high, and the GAFA gave us such a high benchmark or blueprint that you can expect as a user a very, very high standard of user experience. Business model is, of course, it is always behind a very good and successful product has to be and must be a business model, because otherwise it would distinguish what is it? It would go away from the market. Next thing is the API. All the things you are using are combined in an environment. When you use an app, you can also access it via your desktop computer, via browser, or maybe via your smartphone. And all the environments are very open via APIs. And that is also a great criteria to detect successful products. And last but not least, I would mention, of course, the data perspective. It's all about personalization. All the companies are dealing with your data, and they provide, of course, they provide you personalized services, and they are doing it with your data. And that is what you expect today from a good product. You want the product to be and to offer personalized services for you. And that is what maybe the 8 criteria is about. And I want to finish with showing only 3 examples. When you see a Lufthansa app on your Apple Watch, of course, that is a game changer. Of course, if you are able to do all the booking things and onboarding things with your Apple Watch at the airport, that is very cool. And that is a very good examples. That is a typical digital products, because it's an app, but it's linked to an environment of other things. The Tony Box is it's a kind of an audio book cloud service with gadgets, playful gadgets, and that is developed for kids. And each of these play things have a link to a cloud service, and you can hear audiobooks, and that is very cool because it's a physical thing kids can play with, but it lives from the digital environment, and for me it's also a digital product. And last but not least, that is not a real, I think that was a kind of a pitch idea or proposal that Rimowa started thinking about having a display, an e-ink display on their suitcases, where you can mirror your booking strip at the airport on. There's no need to put this tape on it at the check-in. And last but not least, of course, I will also keep in mind and mention twice the BMW online sales solution. That is, of course, also a digital product, because it's a platform and it should solve one problem, that is booking, configuring, and buying one solid project, and totally online. So that is nearly the end. Sorry for 5 minutes delay. I have one slide left, and I will show it to you now. So because I'm here from Track, I would like to offer you, we are open for applications, especially when you want to do an internship in the field of UX or whatever. Feel free to get in touch with us. Our contact data you'll find at our address, and now you can maybe quickly make a snapshot of this QR code that is also linked to the English Track Gmbh jobs website. And now I would close this session with a big thank you all. And if you have questions, feel free to start now.
Thank you very much, Patrick. That was a super informative and insightful presentation. Yes, thank you very much. This is Jan from the Career Development team. If there are any questions from the audience, it is your shiny moment now to ask your question, of course. Switch on your mic, please, and your camera so that we can hear and see you.
Oh, all right. Let me turn on my camera if I can.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. Hi.
Hi.
So yeah, thank you also very much for it was a wonderful presentation about the design. And my question is if you could elaborate a little bit more on one of your slides, which was talking about the 2 diamonds, about the empathy, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Like, I can get a fair idea of like what 3 of those parts of the diamonds do, but I'm not so sure about what the define and ideate parts are, and if you can elaborate on that a little bit more.
Yeah. Okay. The pattern is always the same when dealing with kind of service design or the design thinking methods. Is the first thing is always that you try to aggregate and to collect data, and you speak with users, you collect market research, target group data, and so on, data, website analytics, whatever you can get, you collect. And then you try to, that is what I meant with making it smaller, and then you try to derive the first time kind of real problems that you can detect and that you can find out. Because sometimes when receiving a briefing or from a client, it's not totally clear what is the real problem here. And if you analyze and evaluate all the data, you can derive these, maybe main, this only one main problem, and that is what we call, sometimes we call define. That is a definition of the one problem you want to solve. And then ideate is making the thing bigger, is then you start creating ideas, a lot of ideas, what you can do to tackle this problem. Of course, first, it's not only one solution. Maybe you have hundreds of ideas how to tackle this one problem. And then with all the other methods, when the diamond gets smaller again, you can figure out by prototyping, by testing, by asking users, what could be the one and only remaining solution or idea. And that is what it's about. And For sure, we are doing that. We are talking with users for each small snippets. We are working with that because that is maybe what intuitively you would do. But now you can see somebody has designed a double diamond diagram and put a name over it, double diamond for design thinking. But that is how we work and how every creative work. Even when you do creative campaigns or you make advertising, it's always the same. Okay, is it answered a little bit?
Yeah. And so let's say that I have like idea right now, and what I thought about was to start with start with the left side of the first diamond to collect as much of data, to like create Google Forms and just like to collect as much data and like from feedback from people.
Yeah.
If that would be something they would be interested in, but then I'm not so sure about the that's why I asked about the second part of the diamond where
Yeah,
I already kind of have the idea.
very interesting idea, but or a question, because sometimes it could be the case that you have an idea or you think you have already an idea, and then the first diamond is to kind of re-evaluate, is this idea fitting to a real existing problem, or is it an idea that there is no the real problem for, or is the idea a little bit sideward to the main problem? It's an okayish idea, but it's not really solving the right problem. It's maybe solving a secondary problem. And so it's kind of reconsideration and re-evaluation if you have already an idea. That could also be the starting point for the first diamond.
Yeah, that's exactly why what I'd like to like collect as much data as I would be able to exactly get the feedback if it is solving any existing problem.
Okay, super nice. Thank you, Kubo, for your questions. That was very, very insightful as well. Thank you. And again, thank you, Patrick. Are there any other questions? Maybe there's time for one more question, and then I will let you, or we will let Patrick off the hook. It has been quite a long time already.
Yeah, thank you for the answer.
Thank you, Kubo. Any other questions from the audience? Yes, please.
Yeah, this is Edward this side. I'm like a UX UI major. So I had a question about the internship thingy. So is there like a language barrier that we are supposed to having? Because I'm like I mostly speak English, but if there is like a German barrier that we have to apply for the internship, maybe?
Simple answer is no, because the half of my team is English speaking, coming from India, Serbia, Poland, Ukraine, and so on. And so we are speaking English all over the time. Even my client is speaking English with us most of the time. No language barrier.
Cool, thanks.
Thank you for that question, Iruva. That was a very important one, I think, as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is there a possibility for one last question? I'm not too sure. There's one question that appeared in the chat.
Maybe from the chat, right? Yeah, in the chat from Micaela Guerrero, right?
Mm-hmm.
Micaela is asking about the skills that you, Patrick, recommend to young professionals in order for them to develop and enter the digital product development world. So what would you say? Major skills.
How many hours I have to answer that? No, so
big question.
The simple and shortest answer should be prepare to be a kind of a hybrid between UX design and UI design, and be open to combine disciplines, and to be open to work also with a web analytics or data background, combine strategy and combined UX and visual design expertise. That is always a good starting point, because the industry is trying to change a little bit from the silo thinking of having a UX designer, UI designer, strategist. We are trying to get more in touch with hybrid workers that can think globally and more end-to-end. And that is maybe a good starting point. Do not focus too much on one special point, try to be prepared and be open.
Thank you, Patrick. Michaela, I hope this answers your questions. In case thanks for the answer, she says. Okay, thank you very much. Patrick, this has been super insightful. Thank you very much for this presentation and for taking the time to answer the questions as well. And I hope we can do this again maybe next semester or in a year's time or something. It would be really lovely.
Yeah.
And thank you also for advertising the opportunities to students. That's really important for us as well, of course. Thank you very much, and we'll be in touch, okay? Thank you. And thanks to the audience as well.
Thank you very much. And thank you for having me.
Take care, everybody.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Patrick. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye-bye,
you.
everyone. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye, Christina.
Vielen Dank für deine Zeit, Patrick. Ich sehe ja, deine E-Mail ist leider in den Spam bei mir gelandet, als du schon in den Startlöchern gestanden hast.
Alles gut.
5:45.